Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
I stood there in my best suit, the one I'd ironed twice to make sure it looked sharp, feeling like a fool. My name's Grant Whitaker, 39 years old, and I'd come to this rooftop party in downtown Seattle because my wife, Celeste, asked me to. She works for some fancy lifestyle brand, all about luxury and glamour, and I was proud of her, proud enough to put on a tie and smile at people I didn't know. The venue was stunning, with string lights hanging above us and the city skyline glowing in the distance. I figured it'd be a night to celebrate her, maybe even us. But as soon as we walked in, I could feel something off. She kissed my cheek quick, said, "Mingle, okay?" and then disappeared into the crowd. I grabbed a beer from the bar and tried to play the supportive husband, nodding at her coworkers, making small talk about the weather or whatever. It wasn't my scene, but I was here for her. Then I saw her. Celeste, my wife of 11 years, was out on the dance floor with her boss, Jasper Klein. He's the CEO of her company, some slick guy with a perfect haircut and a smile that says he owns the room. They were dancing close, too close. Her hand rested on his shoulder, his arm snaked around her waist, and they moved like they'd done it before. I watched, my beer getting warm in my hand, waiting for her to glance my way, to wave me over, anything. She didn't. She laughed at something he said, her head tilting back, her eyes bright in a way I hadn't seen in months. The music was loud, some jazzy beat that made my stomach twist, and I felt like I was fading into the background. People bumped past me, chatting and sipping cocktails, and I just stood there, invisible. I couldn't take it anymore. I walked over, weaving through the crowd, my heart pounding. When I got close, I tapped her shoulder. She turned, her smile fading a little when she saw me. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's going on here?" Jasper stepped back, smirking, like he was in on some joke I wasn't. Celeste brushed her hair behind her ear and looked at me like I was interrupting. "We're just dancing, Grant," she said, her tone sharp. I swallowed hard. "It doesn't look like just dancing," I said, glancing at Jasper, who didn't even have the decency to look away. She sighed, loud enough for me to hear over the music, and then she said it, words that hit me like a punch. "I'll dance with whoever I want. You have two options, sit and watch or leave." I stared at her, waiting for her to take it back, to laugh it off, to say she didn't mean it. She didn't. Her eyes were cold, daring me to argue. Jasper chuckled under his breath, and that was it. I turned and walked away. My chest felt tight, my face hot with shame. I pushed through the crowd, past the clinking glasses and fake smiles, and headed for the exit. I didn't look back to see if she cared. The elevator ride down was quiet, just me and the hum of the machinery, and when I stepped outside, the cool night air hit me hard. I'd come here to support her, to be part of her world, and she'd just told me I didn't belong. I left the party, left her there with him, and started walking. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay. The streets were busy, cars honking, people laughing as they spilled out of bars. I kept moving, my shoes clicking against the pavement, my mind racing. We'd been married 11 years, 11 years of fights and making up, of building a life together. And now this. I thought about how she'd changed since she started climbing the ladder at work, how she'd talk about Jasper like he was some genius, how she'd come home late more often. I'd brushed it off, told myself it was nothing. But tonight wasn't nothing. Tonight was her choosing him over me, right in front of everyone. I ended up at the waterfront, the docks quiet except for the lapping waves. I sat on a bench, staring out at the dark water, replaying her words. Sit and watch, or leave. She didn't even give me a real choice. I pulled out my phone, thinking about calling her, but what would I say? She'd made it clear where I stood. So I didn't call. I just sat there, alone, wondering how he got here. It was almost 2 hours later when my phone buzzed. Her name lit up the screen, Celeste. "Where are you?" the text read. No apology, no explanation, just that. I didn't answer. What was there to say? I'd left, just like she told me to. I stood up, my legs stiff from sitting too long, and decided I wasn't going home. Not tonight. I called Owen, my oldest friend, the guy who's been there through every mess I've ever made. He picked up on the second ring. "You okay, man?" he asked, his voice rough like he'd been asleep. "Can I crash at your place?" I said. He didn't ask questions, just told me to come over. I took a cab to his apartment, the city blurring past me, and when I got there, he opened the door with a beer in his hand and another one for me. He didn't say much, just let me in, and I was grateful for it. I dropped onto his couch, the weight of the night sinking in. Celeste hadn't followed me. She hadn't even tried. And that hurt more than the words she'd said. I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing her with Jasper, the way she moved with him, the way she looked at me like I was nothing. I'd always thought we were solid, that we could handle anything. But tonight, I wasn't so sure. I sipped the beer, the cold bottle sweating in my hand, and wondered what came next. Did she mean it? Was this just a fight, or was it something bigger? Owen snored from his room, and I stared at the ceiling, her voice echoing in my head. Sit and watch, or leave. I'd chosen to leave, but now what? I didn't have answers, just questions and a sick feeling in my gut. The party was supposed to be a celebration, but it felt like the start of something ending, and I didn't know how to stop it. I walked out of that rooftop party like a ghost slipping through the cracks of a life I didn't recognize anymore. My name's Grant Whitaker, and I'm 39, a guy who thought he had a solid marriage until about an hour ago. The jazz band's notes faded behind me as I pushed through the glass doors, the laughter of Celeste's coworkers ringing in my ears like some cruel soundtrack. My wife of 11 years, had just told me to sit and watch her leave, all because I dared to question why she was dancing with her boss, Jasper Klein, like I wasn't even there. I chose to leave, not because I wanted to, but because staying felt like agreeing to be invisible. The elevator dinged, and I stepped in alone, the mirrored walls showing me a man in a suit that suddenly felt too tight, too wrong for the moment. I didn't say goodbye to anyone, didn't wave or make excuses. I just vanished. Outside, the Seattle night hit me with a damp chill, the kind that seeps into your bones. The streets were alive, cars honking, groups of people stumbling out of bars, their voices loud and carefree. I started walking, my polished shoes clicking against the wet pavement, no real direction in mind. My chest was tight, my head spinning with what I'd just seen. Celeste's hand on Jasper's shoulder, his arm around her waist, the way she laughed like she used to laugh with me. I'd stood there with my beer, waiting for her to notice me, to remember I was her husband, not some stranger at the bar. She didn't. And then those words, you have two options, sit and watch or leave. They kept playing in my head, over and over, like a song I couldn't turn off. I'd left, but it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like I'd lost something I couldn't name. I ended up at the waterfront, the dock stretching out quiet and dark under the city lights. The water lapped against the pilings, a steady rhythm that calmed me a little. I found a bench, sat down, and stared out at the black waves. My suit jacket was wrinkled now, my tie loose, but I didn't care. I was alone, and for the first time that night, it felt right. I thought about calling her, texting her, anything to make her explain. But what would I say? Why'd you pick him over me? Why'd you make me feel like nothing? I pulled my phone out, stared at her name in my contacts, and then shoved it back in my pocket. She hadn't cared enough to stop me from walking out. Why should I be the one to reach out? The wind picked up, tugging at my hair, and I let it. I let the cold sink in, let the silence wrap around me. I didn't want to feel warm or safe right now. I wanted to feel this. 2 hours passed. I checked my watch at some point, saw it was past midnight. My phone buzzed once, then twice. It was her. Where are you? The first text said, Grant, answer me. The second one read, No, I'm sorry. No, I messed up. Just demands. I didn't reply. What was there to say? She told me to leave, and I had. I wasn't ready to hear her voice, to let her spin this into something small when it felt so big. I stood up, my legs stiff from sitting too long, and started walking again. Home wasn't an option, not tonight. I couldn't face our bed, her perfume on the pillows, the photos of us smiling on the walls. I needed somewhere else, somewhere I could breathe. So I called Owen. He's my oldest friend, the guy who's seen me at my worst and never judged. His voice was groggy when he answered. Grant? You okay? He said. Can I crash at your place? I asked, my throat tight. Yeah, man, come over, he said, no hesitation. That's Owen, steady when I'm falling apart. The cab ride to his apartment was a blur, the city lights streaking past like they were running from me. I paid the driver, climbed the stairs to Owen's place, and knocked. He opened the door in a faded t-shirt, his hair a mess, holding 2 beers. He handed me one without a word, stepped aside, and let me in. His place was small, cluttered with old furniture and stacks of books, but it felt safe. I dropped onto his couch, the springs creaking under me, and took a long sip of the beer. It was cold, bitter, exactly what I needed. Owen sat across from me in an armchair, watching me with those quiet eyes of his. You want to talk? he asked after a minute. I shook my head. Not yet, I said. He nodded, didn't push. That's why I came here, he gets it. He doesn't fill the silence with noise. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, the beer bottle sweating in my hand. My mind wouldn't stop. I kept seeing Celeste with Jasper, the way she'd looked at him, the way she'd dismissed me. 11 years, and she'd never talked to me like that before. Sure, we'd fought about money, about my long hours at the warehouse, about her late nights at the office, but it was always us against the problem. Tonight felt like her against me. I wondered if this was new, or if I'd just been too blind to see it coming. She'd been different lately, distant, sharper, always talking about work, about Jasper's big ideas. I told myself it was stress, ambition, but maybe it was more. Maybe I'd been a fool to think we were still a team. Owen's snores started up from his room, a low rumble that made me smile despite everything. I finished the beer, set the bottle on the coffee table, and stretched out on the couch. It smelled like dust and old leather, but it was better than our bed tonight. I closed my eyes, but sleep didn't come. Instead, I saw her again, dancing, laughing, telling me to leave. I wondered if she'd even noticed how long I'd been gone before she texted. 2 hours. 2 hours of me wandering, breaking, and she'd been what? Still at the party? Still with him? My phone buzzed again. Another text. Grant, please. I didn't look at it long, just turned the screen off. I didn't owe her an answer, not after that. The night stretched on, the city humming outside Owen's window. I thought about tomorrow, about what I'd do when the sun came up. Go home? Face her? Or stay gone a little longer? I didn't know. All I knew was that I'd walked out of that party, out of her world, and I wasn't sure I could walk back in. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She'd given me 2 options, but I was starting to think there was a third, figuring out who I was without her shadow over me. I pulled a blanket over my shoulders, the weight of it grounding me, and let the darkness settle. For now, this was enough. For now, I was here. I woke up on Owen's couch with a crick in my neck and the taste of last night's beer still in my mouth. My name's Grant Whitaker, 39 years old, and I'd spent the night away from home after my wife, Celeste, turned a company party into a gut punch. The morning light snuck through Owen's blinds, hitting me in the face, and I groaned as I sat up. My phone was on the coffee table, screen dark, but I knew she'd texted again. I didn't check, not yet. I could still hear her voice from last night, sharp and cold. You have 2 options, sit and watch, or leave. I'd left, walked out of that rooftop venue in Seattle like a ghost, and now here I was, crashed at my best friend's place, trying to figure out what came next. Owen shuffled out of his room, scratching his head, and muttered, "Coffee." I nodded, grateful he didn't ask how I was. I wasn't ready to answer that. The smell of brewing coffee filled his small apartment, and I stood up, stretching out the stiffness. My suit jacket was crumpled on the armrest, my tie a mess beside it. I looked like I'd been through a fight, and maybe I had, just not the kind with fists. Owen handed me a mug, black and steaming, and I took it, letting the warmth seep into my hands. You going home today? He asked, leaning against the counter. I stared into the coffee, watching the surface ripple. Yeah, I said finally. She called. I need to hear what she's got to say. He raised an eyebrow but didn't push. You sure? He said. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. I couldn't hide here forever. I had to face her, even if it tore me up all over again. The drive home was quiet, just the hum of my truck and the occasional honk from the city traffic. My phone buzzed a few times, Celeste again. Grant, please come home, one said. I'm sorry I freaked out, another. No mention of Jasper, no real apology for what she'd said. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles white. I didn't know what I'd find when I walked through our door. Tears, excuses, or more of that cold edge she'd shown last night. I pulled into our driveway, the house looking the same as always. Red brick, neat lawn, the place we'd bought together 8 years ago. It felt different now, like it belonged to someone else. I sat there for a minute, engine off, steeling myself. Then I got out and went inside. She was in the kitchen when I walked in, her hair messy, still in her pajamas. She looked up from her coffee, and her face lit up with relief. Grant, she said, standing fast, like she might hug me. I held up a hand, stopping her. Don't, I said, my voice rougher than I meant it to be. She froze, her eyes wide, and I dropped my keys on the counter. We need to talk, I said. She nodded quick, too quick, and sat back down. I stayed standing, leaning against the wall, arms crossed. The air between us was thick, heavy with everything unsaid. Where were you? She asked, her voice small. Owen's, I said. After I left the party. You know, when you told me to. Her face flushed, and she looked down at her mug. I didn't mean it like that, she said. I laughed, short and bitter. How'd you mean it, then? She took a breath, fiddling with the handle of her cup. I was drunk, Grant. The wine, the music, it got to me. I didn't think you'd take it so hard. I stared at her, waiting for more, but that was it. That's your excuse? I said. You were dancing with Jasper like I wasn't even there. You humiliated me in front of everyone, and all you've got is, I was drunk. Her head snapped up, and I saw a flash of that sharpness from last night. It was just a dance, she said. You're making it bigger than it is. You embarrassed me by storming out like that. I couldn't believe it. She was turning this on me. I embarrassed you? I said, stepping closer. You told me to sit and watch her leave. Like I'm some dog you can order around. What was I supposed to do, Celeste? She stood up now, her chair scraping the floor. I didn't mean it that way. You're twisting it. Jasper's my boss, Grant. It's a company thing. You don't get how it works. I clenched my fists, trying to keep my voice steady. I get that he had his hands all over you, and you didn't care how it looked, how it made me feel. She rolled her eyes, rolled her damn eyes, and that set me off. Don't do that, I snapped. Don't act like I'm crazy for caring. Why'd you say it, huh? Why'd you tell me to leave? She crossed her arms, mirroring me, and for a second, we just glared at each other. I was mad, she said finally. You came over all jealous, interrupting us. I just wanted you to back off. Back off. I echoed. I'm your husband, Celeste. Not some guy crashing your night. You picked him over me right there, and you don't even see it. She opened her mouth, then closed it, like she didn't know what to say. It wasn't about picking anyone, she said, quieter now. It was a stupid moment. I'm sorry, okay? I didn't want you to leave. I searched her face, looking for something real, something I could hold on to. But all I saw was her trying to smooth this over, like I was a problem she could fix with a few words. You didn't stop me, I said. 2 hours, Celeste. I was gone 2 hours before you even texted. What were you doing? Her silence said too much. She looked away, biting her lip, and I knew she'd stayed at that party, probably still laughing with Jasper while I was breaking apart by the water. I thought you'd come back, she mumbled. I didn't think you'd just go. I shook my head, feeling the weight of it all crash down. You didn't think about me at all, I said. That's the problem. She reached for me then, her hand hovering, but I stepped back. Grant, please, she said, her voice cracking. I messed up. Let's fix this. I wanted to believe her, wanted to let her tears pull me in. But I couldn't. Not yet. I need answers, I said. Not excuses. What's going on with you and Jasper? Tell me the truth. She flinched, like I'd hit her, and sat down hard. Nothing's going on, she said. He's my boss. That's it. You're blowing this up because you don't trust me. I leaned down, meeting her eyes. I don't trust you because you gave me a reason not to. Last night wasn't nothing. Don't lie to me. She didn't answer, just stared back, and I straightened up. I'm not doing this right now, I said. I need to think. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Grant, wait, she called, but I didn't stop. I walked out, the same way I'd left the party, feeling like a stranger in my own life. She didn't follow, and that told me more than her words ever could. I drove away from our house with no real plan, just the hum of my truck and the ache in my chest keeping me company. My name's Grant Whitaker, 39 years old, and I'm starting to see cracks in my marriage I'd ignored for too long. After Celeste's half-answers this morning, her excuses about the party, her dancing with Jasper Klein, her boss, I couldn't stay in that kitchen with her. She'd said it was nothing, just a dance, but her words felt hollow, like she was managing me instead of facing me. I'd walked out again, not because I wanted to run, but because I needed air, space to think. The city blurred past my windows, all gray buildings and wet streets, and I ended up at Owen's again. He's my rock, the guy who doesn't flinch when I show up a mess. I parked, climbed the stairs, and knocked. He opened the door, took one look at me, and said, "Back already?" I stepped inside, dropping onto his couch like it was home now. He didn't ask much, just grabbed us both a couple of sodas from his fridge and sat across from me. The fizz of the can opening was the only sound for a minute. Talk to her, I said finally, staring at the bubbles in my drink. Didn't go well. Owen leaned back, his face calm but his eyes sharp. What did she say? He asked. I took a sip, the cold biting my throat. Said it was just a dance. That I overreacted. Blamed the wine, the stress, me leaving. No real sorry in it. He nodded slow, like he was piecing it together. And you don't buy it, he said. It wasn't a question. Nope, I said. She didn't even care I was gone 2 hours last night. Kept saying I embarrassed her by walking out. Like I'm the problem here. Owen rubbed his jaw, thinking. He's not big on words, but when he talks, it sticks. You ever hear anything about this Jasper guy? He asked. I shrugged. Just what she's told me. Big shot CEO, runs her company, always got some grand plan she's raving about. Why? He set his soda down, leaning forward. Heard his name before, he said. Not from you. From a buddy of mine, works at a firm downtown. Said Jasper's got a reputation. My stomach tightened. What kind? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. Owen's eyes met mine, steady. Likes to get close to the women he works with. Real close. People talk, say he's smooth, knows how to play it off as business. But it's a pattern. I sat there, letting that sink in. A pattern. I thought about Celeste, how she'd light up talking about him, his ideas, his charm, how he gets her work. I'd always chalked it up to her loving her job, being proud of what she did. But now, with Owen's words hanging in the air, it felt different. She's always defended him, I said, more to myself than him. Anytime I'd ask about late nights, meetings running over, she'd say he's just intense about the company. That I wouldn't get it. Owen didn't say anything, just watched me connect the dots. I ran a hand through my hair, feeling the weight of it. You think she's part of that pattern? I asked, my voice low. He shrugged. Don't know her like you do. But if he's got a type, and she's brushing you off. He didn't finish, didn't need to. I stood up, pacing the small room, my boots scuffing the worn carpet. I thought back, months, maybe a year, of little things I'd let slide. Her coming home late, smelling like wine and perfume I didn't recognize. Her phone buzzing at odd hours, her quick, it's just work, when I'd ask. The way she'd snap if I pushed, like I was the one out of line. And last night, Jasper's hand on her waist, her laughing like I wasn't there. It wasn't just a dance. It was a spotlight on everything I'd been too dumb or too scared to see. This isn't new, I said, stopping by the window, looking out at the gray day. She's been pulling away, and I didn't call it out. Owen cracked his knuckles, a habit when he's thinking hard. You're not wrong to feel off about it, he said. That party? She didn't just dance with him. She told you where you stand. That's not a one-off. I turned, leaning against the sill. She said I don't trust her, I said. Maybe I didn't. But now I'm wondering if I should have stopped trusting her a while ago. He nodded, sipping his soda. Trust a two-way thing. She's got to give you a reason to keep it. I laughed, dry and tired. Yeah, well, she's not. She's giving me reasons to doubt. I sat back down, my head spinning. I pictured her with Jasper, not just last night, but all those times she'd come home glowing, talking about some meeting or dinner. I'd ask how her day was, and she'd give me bits and pieces, always circling back to him. Jasper said this, Jasper thinks that. I'd nod, smile, think it was harmless. But Owen's words, pattern, reputation, made it uglier. I wasn't some jealous guy making up stories. I was a husband watching his wife drift into someone else's orbit. I've been in the shadows, I said, the realization hitting hard. She's been pushing me there, and I let her. Owen tilted his head. So what now? He asked. I didn't have an answer, not a clear one. I don't know, I said. I can't go back like nothing's changed. But I can't just walk away either. Not yet. He leaned back, giving me space to think. You don't have to decide today, he said. But you gotta see it for what it is. She's not the only one with power here. That stuck with me. Power. She'd used hers last night, telling me to sit or leave, like I didn't matter. But I had power to call it out, to demand more, or to walk for good. I stayed at Owen's a while longer, sipping my soda, letting the quiet settle my nerves. The more I thought, the clearer it got. This wasn't about one night. It was about months of her choosing her world over ours, of me fading while she shone brighter with him. I didn't know if she'd crossed a line with Jasper, not for sure. But I knew she'd crossed one with me. I'd been blind, letting her dismiss my worries, letting her make me small. No more. I finished my drink, looking cold and empty in my hand. Thanks, man, I said to Owen. He nodded. Anytime. I stood, grabbing my keys. I wasn't going home yet, but I wasn't staying lost either. I had to figure out what I wanted and what I wouldn't take anymore. I left Owen's place with my head still buzzing, the weight of everything pressing down like a storm I couldn't outrun. My name's Grant Whitaker, 39 years old, and I'm a man who's just starting to see how far my marriage has slipped. After talking with Owen, hearing about Jasper Klein's reputation, and piecing together Celeste's slow drift away from me, I knew I couldn't go home, not to stay, not yet. Last night at the company party, she danced with her boss like I was nothing, told me to sit and watch her leave, and this morning's confrontation only made it worse. Her excuses, her half-apologies, they didn't fix the hole she'd punched through us. I needed space, real space, to figure out what I felt and what I'd do about it. So I drove, not to our house, but to a short-term rental I'd found online. A small apartment a few miles away, close enough to not feel like I was running, far enough to breathe. The place was basic: one bedroom, a kitchenette, a couch that looked like it had seen better days. I signed the lease with a guy who barely looked up from his phone, handed over a deposit, and hauled my duffel bag inside. It was just some clothes, my toothbrush, a few things I'd grabbed from home before I left her standing in the kitchen. The walls were beige. The air smelled faintly of bleach, but it was mine for now. I dropped onto the couch, staring at the ceiling, and let the quiet sink in. My phone buzzed. Celeste again. "Grant, let's talk," the text said. Then another. "Come home, please." I didn't answer. She'd said plenty this morning, and none of it changed what I'd seen, what I'd felt. Her dancing with Jasper, her hand lingering on him, her laughing like I wasn't there. It played on a loop in my head, and I couldn't shake it. I unpacked my bag, hanging shirts in the tiny closet, trying to keep my hands busy so my mind wouldn't spiral. But it did anyway. 11 years with her, 11 years of mornings together, of fights and making up, of building a life I thought was solid. Now I was here, alone in a rented room, because she'd made me feel like I didn't belong in hers. I thought about calling Owen, but he'd already done enough, letting me crash, listening to me vent. This was on me now. I walked to the window, looking out at the street below, cars rolling by, people living their lives. I wondered if any of them felt as lost as I did, if any of them had watched their wife choose someone else right in front of them. My phone kept buzzing, more texts piling up. "I didn't mean what I said," she wrote. "It was a mistake." Then, "Jasper's just my boss, Grant. Nothing more." I read them, one by one, feeling the anger bubble up again. She didn't deny the dance, didn't deny the words she'd thrown at me, just kept saying it meant nothing. But I remembered her eyes that night, bright, alive, locked on him in a way they hadn't been on me in months. Her hand on his shoulder, his arm around her waist, the way she'd moved with him. It wasn't nothing. It was everything. I tossed the phone onto the couch, not ready to reply. I didn't trust myself to keep it calm, and I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of a fight she could twist. I went to work instead, needing something normal to hold on to. I manage a warehouse downtown. Nothing fancy, but it's steady. Forklifts humming, boxes moving, guys who don't ask too many questions. I threw myself into it, checking inventory, barking orders, keeping my hands and head busy. The crew noticed I was off. Mike, one of the older guys, clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Rough night, boss." I forced a grin. Something like that. They didn't push, and I was glad. Work was my anchor, the one place I still felt like me. But even there, she crept in. Memories of her texting me during breaks, asking about my day. That hadn't happened in a while. I'd been too busy to notice. Or maybe I'd just stopped expecting it. Days turned into a week. I settled into the apartment, bought some groceries, made it livable. Celeste's texts kept coming, a mix of pleading and frustration. "I miss you," one said. "Why won't you answer?" another. I didn't, not because I wanted to punish her, but because I didn't know what to say. Every time I thought about her, I saw Jasper's smirk, heard her voice telling me to leave. I started running in the mornings, pounding the pavement near the apartment, letting the burn in my legs drown out the noise in my head. I'd pass couples walking dogs, laughing, and it had hit me. Celeste and I used to be like that, before her job, before him. I wondered when we'd stopped. One night, I sat on the couch with a beer, staring at a crack in the wall. I thought about her claim. Jasper's just her boss, nothing more. Maybe she believed it. Maybe she didn't see how she'd changed, how she'd leaned into his world and left me behind. But I saw it. Owen's words about Jasper's reputation stuck with me. Smooth, close to the women he worked with, a pattern. I didn't know if she'd crossed that line, if it was more than dancing, more than attention. I didn't have proof, just a gut feeling that wouldn't quit. And that was enough to keep me here, away from her, rebuilding the walls she'd torn down. I started sleeping better, the strange bed feeling less strange. Work kept me grounded, and I found myself talking more with the guys, cracking jokes, feeling lighter. But Celeste was still there, a shadow I couldn't shake. Her last text came late one night. "I'm sorry, Grant. I didn't see what I was doing to you." It was the closest she'd come to owning it, and it stopped me cold. I held the phone, thumb hovering over the keys, wanting to write back. But what would I say? Sorry's not enough? I don't know if I believe you. I set it down instead, unfinished. I wasn't ready to let her in, not when I was finally finding my footing without her. The separation wasn't permanent, not yet. I hadn't decided what I wanted long-term. But for now, it was right. I needed this, space to think, to feel something besides hurt and doubt. I'd spent too long in her orbit, letting her pull me where she wanted. Now I was standing still, figuring out my own gravity. I finished my beer, the bottle cold against my lips, and looked around the little apartment. It wasn't home, not really, but it was mine. And for the first time in a while, that felt like enough. I didn't know what came next, her, us, or just me. But I'd find out on my terms, not hers. I was sitting at my desk, staring at a stack of invoices I hadn't touched, when she walked in. "My name's Grant Whitaker, 39 years old, and I've been living in a rented apartment for a couple of weeks now, trying to make sense of my marriage after Celeste turned a company party into a breaking point. I'm a warehouse manager, and my office is a cramped room off the main floor, all concrete walls and flickering lights. It's not much, but it's where I've been hiding out, keeping my head down, focusing on work instead of her. That afternoon, the door creaked open, and there she was, Celeste, my wife, standing in the doorway like a ghost I wasn't ready to face. Her eyes were red, her makeup smudged, her hair pulled back messy. She looked like she'd been crying, and it threw me off. I hadn't seen her like this in years. "Grant," she said, her voice shaky, stepping inside without asking. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed, not saying a word. The hum of the warehouse, forklifts beeping, guys shouting filtered through the walls, but in here, it was just us and the tension. She closed the door behind her, the click loud in the quiet, and stood there, clutching her purse like it was a lifeline. "Can we talk?" she asked. I didn't move, didn't make it easy. "You're here," I said, flat. "Talk." She swallowed hard, her eyes darting around the room, my desk, the old coffee mug, the calendar pinned to the wall, anywhere but me. Then she took a breath and started. "I'm sorry," she said, the words spilling out fast. "I've been a mess since you left the party. I didn't realize what I'd done until you were gone, not just last night, but all of it. I've been awful to you, Grant, and I hate myself for it." I watched her, waiting for the catch. She texted apologies before, little stabs at fixing things. But this was different. She was here, raw, falling apart. "I saw it the second you walked out," she went on, her voice cracking. "How I made you feel. I didn't mean to, I swear I didn't, but I did. And I'm so sorry." She stepped closer, her hands twisting the strap of her purse. "I forgot what we were. I got caught up in work and feeling important, and I pushed you away." I stayed quiet, letting her words hang there. My chest tightened, memories flashing, her dancing with Jasper, her cold sit and watch her leave, the way she'd brushed me off the next morning. Now she was here, saying she saw it, saying she was sorry. Part of me wanted to believe her, to grab onto this and pull us back together. But another part, the part that had been sleeping on a lumpy couch, running alone in the mornings, didn't trust it. "What changed?" I asked, my voice low. "You didn't care when I left. 2 hours, Celeste, and you didn't even notice. Why now?" She flinched, like I'd slapped her, and looked down at the floor. "It wasn't that I didn't care," she said, quieter. "I was mad, stupid, caught up in the moment. I thought you'd come back, that we'd fight it out like always. When you didn't, when you stayed gone, I panicked. And then you moved out, and I—" She trailed off, tears spilling over now, and wiped her face with her sleeve. "I know I messed up, Grant. Not just the party, but before. With Jasper. That name hit me like a jolt, and I sat up straighter. What about him?" I said, sharper than I meant. She met my eyes finally, hers wet and scared. "He's got a reputation," she said. "I knew it, everyone does. He's flirty, pushy, but I told myself it was harmless. I liked it. The attention, the way he made me feel powerful, seen. I used it, and I didn't see how it hurt you." I stared at her, my jaw tight. Owen's words echoed, Jasper's pattern, getting close to women at work. She was admitting it now, not the dance, but the months of leaning into him, of letting him matter more than me. You made me invisible, I said, the words cutting through the air. You laughed with him, danced with him, and told me to deal with it. You don't get to say you didn't see it. She nodded, fast, like she couldn't argue. I know, she said. I was selfish. I wanted to feel big, and I didn't care what it did to you. I see it now, and I hate it. I hate who I've been. She stepped closer, reaching out, but stopped when she saw my face. I'm not asking you to forgive me today, she said. I just needed you to know. I didn't move, didn't soften. Her tears were real. Her voice broke in all the right places, but it felt late, too late. You liked the power, I said, repeating her words. What about me? Where was I in that? You didn't just forget us, Celeste. You chose him over me, right there, in front of everyone. She shook her head, desperate. It wasn't a choice like that. It was stupid, thoughtless. I wasn't thinking about you, and I should have been. I know I should have. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, looking up at her. You told me to leave, I said. You stood there with him and said it. What was I supposed to do? She didn't answer, just cried harder, her shoulders shaking. The room felt smaller, the air thick with her regret and my anger. I wanted to yell, to shake her, to make her feel what I'd felt that night, standing there, watching her with him, fading into nothing. But I didn't. I sat back, hands clasped, and let her stand there, exposed. I've been trying to figure out who I am without you, I said slow. Because you made me feel like I didn't matter. And now you're sorry. She nodded, wiping her face again. I am, she said. I don't expect you to believe me yet. But I'll show you, Grant. I'll do whatever it takes. I didn't respond, just watched her, the woman I'd loved for 11 years, breaking down in my dingy office. She stayed a few minutes more, rambling about how she'd change, how she'd cut Jasper out of her life, how she'd missed me. I listened, but I didn't give her anything back, not a nod, not a word. When she ran out of steam, she looked at me, waiting. I should go, she said finally, her voice small. I nodded once, and she turned, opening the door. I love you, she whispered, almost too quiet to hear, then left. The door clicked shut, and I was alone again, the invoices still untouched, the hum of the warehouse filling the silence. I sat there a long time, her words spinning in my head. She was sorry, really sorry, maybe for the first time. She'd admitted to Jasper's pull, to using him, to making me invisible. It was more than I'd gotten before, more than texts or excuses. But it didn't erase the hurt, didn't rebuild the trust she'd shattered. I picked up a pen, twirled it in my fingers, and thought about what she'd said, how she'd show me. I didn't know if I wanted her to, if I could let her try. The apology was hers, but the choice was mine, and I wasn't ready to make it. Not yet. I left the warehouse after Celeste's visit, her tear-streaked face and broken apologies still rattling around in my head. My name's Grant Whitaker, 39 years old, and I've been living apart from my wife for weeks now, trying to untangle the mess she made of us at that company party. She'd shown up at my office today, raw and desperate, admitting she'd chased Jasper's attention, made me invisible, and lost sight of what we had. It was the most honest she'd been in months, maybe years, but it didn't fix anything, not yet. I drove away from work, not to my rented apartment, but out to the trails we used to walk together, back when things were simpler. The sun was dipping low, painting the sky orange, and I needed to be somewhere that wasn't hers or mine, just ours, or what used to be. I parked near Lake Washington, where the paths wind through trees and the air smells like pine and water. My boots crunched on the gravel as I started walking, hands in my pockets, the cool breeze tugging at my jacket. This was our spot. Years ago, me and Celeste, before her job took over, before Jasper Klein strutted into our lives. We'd come here on weekends, sometimes with Duke, our rescue mutt, his tail wagging like crazy as he chased sticks into the shallows. I could still hear her laughing, see her tossing a ball, her hair wild in the wind. Those days felt like another life now, shadows of a marriage I wasn't sure I could get back. I kept moving, the trail stretching out ahead, and let my mind wander to the good stuff, the stuff I'd buried under all this hurt. We'd met at a bar, 12 years ago. Me, a guy hauling boxes for a living, her, a grad student with big dreams and a sharp tongue. She'd spilled her drink on me by accident, laughed, and bought me a beer to make up for it. That was Celeste, bold, quick, pulling me in before I knew what hit me. We'd married a year later, small ceremony, just family and Owen, promising to stick it out no matter what. And we had, for a while. I thought about the mornings she'd bring me coffee in bed, black and strong, teasing me about snoring. Or the nights we'd argue over what movie to rent, her pushing some artsy thing, me wanting action, ending up tangled on the couch either way. That was us, messy real good. I stopped by the water, the lake lapping at the shore, and sat on a bench we'd claimed once, carving our initials into the wood like kids. They were still there, faded but legible, G and C. I traced them with my finger, feeling the grooves, and wondered when we'd lost that version of ourselves. Was it her job, climbing the corporate ladder, turning her into someone who needed Jasper's spotlight? Or was it me, too comfortable, not seeing her drift? I pulled out a notebook I'd started carrying, something to dump my thoughts into since I moved out. I scribbled a line, "When did she stop being mine?" and stared at it, the ink smudging under my thumb. I didn't have an answer, just a hollow ache. Duke came to mind, our dog who died last year. He was the last thing we'd really shared, grieving him together, holding each other when the vet called it. She'd cried into my shirt, and I'd felt needed, strong for her. After that, it was like we'd drifted into parallel lives, her with work, me with the warehouse, passing each other like ships. I wrote that down too. Duke was our glue, and let the memory sit. I missed him, his sloppy kisses, the way he'd nudge my hand for a scratch. I missed her too, the her from back then, not the one who'd danced with Jasper and told me to leave. The trail was quiet now, just me and the rustling leaves, and I kept walking, letting the past wash over me. I thought about the little things, her humming in the kitchen, burning toast because she'd get distracted, me fixing it, and kissing her anyway. The way she'd steal my flannels in winter, laughing when I'd pretend to fight her for them. We'd built something, a life full of quirks and warmth, and I didn't know how it had turned cold. I stopped again, leaning against a tree, the bark rough under my palms. Jasper wasn't the start of it, I realized. He was the symptom. She'd been pulling away before him, chasing something I couldn't give her, something bigger than our quiet days. I'd let her, too busy or too blind to fight for us. I wrote that down. I didn't see her leaving, and felt the truth of it settle in my gut. The sun was gone now, the sky bruising purple, and I kept moving, the trail looping back toward my truck. I thought about her apology today, how she'd stood there in my office, tears falling, saying she'd used Jasper to feel powerful, that she'd made me invisible. It was real, her regret, but it didn't erase the months, years, maybe, of distance. I didn't know if I could bridge it, if I wanted to. I loved her, still, somewhere deep, but I didn't love who she'd become, all sharp edges and corporate shine. I wrote another line. I miss her, not this, and closed the notebook, tucking it into my jacket. The air was colder now, biting at my face, and I welcomed it, let it wake me up. I got back to my truck, the lot empty except for me, and sat inside without starting it. I stared out at the dark trees, thinking about what we'd had, what we'd lost. Duke's death was a marker, I decided. The last time we'd been us, really us. After that, she'd thrown herself into work, into Jasper's world, and I'd let the warehouse swallow me. We'd stopped talking, stopped fighting even, just coasting until that party blew it all open. I didn't hate her, not yet, but I hated what we'd let happen. I started the engine, the rumble loud in the silence, and drove back to my apartment, the notebook heavy in my pocket. When I got there, I dropped onto the couch, the springs creaking, and flipped through what I'd written. Shadows of a marriage, bits of us scattered across pages, good and bad. I didn't know if we could rebuild, if those old days were gone for good. Her apology lingered, a crack of light, but it wasn't enough to pull me back. I set the notebook down, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and sat in the dark, the city humming outside. I missed her, the real her, the one who'd carved initials with me, who'd loved me without needing someone else's eyes. But that Celeste felt far away, and I didn't know if I could find her again. For now, I was here, alone, holding on to memories and wondering if they were all I'd have left. I was pouring coffee into a chipped mug at my apartment when my phone buzzed with a new text from Celeste. My name's Grant Whitaker, 39 years old, and I've been living apart from my wife for weeks now, wrestling with the fallout of her dancing with her boss, Jasper Klein, at that damn company party. She'd come to my office a few days ago, all tears and apologies, admitting she'd chased his attention and pushed me out of her life. It was raw, real, but I hadn't known what to do with it. Still didn't. The text read, "I've been seeing a therapist. Alone. I'd like you to come to a session with me. Please." I set the mug down, the steam curling up, and stared at the words. Therapy. It wasn't a word we'd ever tossed around before, not seriously. I didn't answer right away, just let it sit there, heavy on the counter next to my keys. I spent the morning at work, moving boxes, checking schedules, keeping my hands busy so my head wouldn't take over. The warehouse was loud, forklifts whining, guys laughing, and it kept me grounded. But her text gnawed at me. She was trying. I give her that. Going to therapy alone, reaching out. It wasn't just words this time, it was action. I thought about the trails I'd walked the other day, the memories of us I'd dug up, the way we used to be. Could we get there again? Did I want to? By lunch, I'd made up my mind. I texted back, "Okay. When?" She replied fast, "Tomorrow, 3 p.m. and sent an address. I nodded to myself, like I'd signed a contract, and went back to work, the decision settling like a stone in my gut. The next day, I drove to the therapist's office, a plain building downtown with too many windows. I parked, checked my watch 2:50, and sat there, gripping the steering wheel. I didn't know what I'd say, what I'd hear. Celeste's truck was already there, and I pictured her inside, waiting, maybe as nervous as me. I got out, locked the door, and walked in, my boots loud on the tile. The receptionist pointed me to a room down the hall, and I knocked once before stepping inside. Celeste was on a couch, legs crossed, looking smaller than usual. A woman, mid-50s, glasses, kind eyes, sat in an armchair, notepad in her lap. "Grant," she said, standing. "I'm Dr. Ellis." I nodded, shook her hand, and sat in the chair across from Celeste. She gave me a weak smile, her fingers twisting together. Dr. Ellis started, calm and steady. "Celeste asked you here because she's been working on herself, and she wants to include you in that. I'm here to help you both talk. No pressure, just what you're comfortable with." I glanced at Celeste, her eyes on me, waiting. "Okay," I said, leaning back, arms crossed. Dr. Ellis nodded. "Celeste, why don't you start?" She took a breath, uncrossed her legs, and looked at me straight. "I was cruel," she said, her voice low. "That night at the party, I humiliated you. I danced with Jasper, said those things, sit and watch her leave, and I didn't care how it hit you. I've been replaying it, hating myself for it. I'm sorry, Grant. Really sorry." I felt my throat tighten, her words digging into the raw spots I'd been carrying. "You didn't just humiliate me," I said, slow, keeping my eyes on her. "You made me feel like I didn't exist, like I was nothing to you. I stood there, watching you with him, and you told me to deal with it. What was I supposed to do with that?" She flinched, tears welling up, but she didn't look away. "Nothing," she said. "You shouldn't have had to do anything. I was wrong, selfish, stupid. I used Jasper to feel something, to escape the routine, and I didn't see what I was doing to us." Dr. Ellis scribbled something, then looked at me. "How did that feel, Grant, hearing her say that?" I shifted, the chair creaking under me. "It's what she said at my office," I said. "That she wanted his attention, his power. It's honest, I guess. But it doesn't change how it felt, standing there, fading while she laughed with him. I've been trying to figure out if I can trust her again." Celeste wiped her eyes, quick, like she didn't want me to see. "I don't blame you," she said. "I broke that trust. I've been working here, with Dr. Ellis, to understand why I did it, why I needed that escape. It wasn't about you, Grant. It was me, feeling stuck, chasing something dumb." Dr. Ellis leaned in. "Can you tell him more about that, Celeste?" She nodded, swallowing hard. "I got bored," she said. "Not a view of us, the everyday stuff. Work was exciting, Jasper was exciting, and I let it pull me away. I didn't cheat, not like that, but I let him matter too much. I see it now, and I hate it." I stared at her, the words sinking in. Bored. It stung, but it fit, her late nights, her glow when she talked about him. "You could have told me," I said, my voice rough. "Instead of running to him. We could have fixed it." She nodded, tears spilling now. "I know. I was a coward. I didn't want to face it." The room got quiet, just her soft crying and the tick of a clock somewhere. Dr. Ellis broke it. "Grant, what do you need from her now?" I looked at Celeste, her face open, waiting. "I need to know I'm not invisible," I said. "That if we do this, you choose me, not him, not work, me. I can't be the guy you settle for." She reached out, then stopped, her hand hovering. "You're not," she said. "You never were. I lost sight of that, But I see you now. I'll prove it, if you let me. I didn't take her hand, didn't move, just let her words settle. Dr. Ellis watched us, then said, "This is a start. Maybe space, but not silence, could help." Thoughts? I nodded, slow. Yeah, space, but talking. I'm not ready to come home, but I'm here. Celeste's face softened, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. The session ended awkward, us standing, her hugging me quick, me stiff but not pulling away. I left first, the air outside cool against my face, and drove back to my apartment, replaying it all. She'd owned it, her cruelty, her escape, her regret. I'd said my piece, let her see the hurt. We'd cried, both of us, and it wasn't fixed, but it was something. I sat on my couch that night, a beer in hand, the session looping in my mind. She was trying therapy, honesty, facing me. I didn't know if I could let her back in, if the trust could grow again. But I'd gone, I'd listened, and that was my choice, not sitting, not leaving, but stepping in. The door wasn't shut, just ajar, and I'd see where it led. For now, that was enough. I was at my apartment, flipping through a takeout menu I'd already memorized, when the news broke. My name's Grant Whitaker, 39 years old, and I've been separated from my wife, Celeste, for weeks now, ever since she danced with her boss, Jasper Klein, at that company party and told me to sit or leave. We'd started talking again, therapy, awkward hugs, her trying to show me she'd changed, but I was still here, in this rented space, figuring out if I could trust her. That night, I'd left the TV on low, some background noise to fill the quiet, when a headline caught my eye. I grabbed the remote, turned up the volume, and there it was, luxury brand CEO Jasper Klein under investigation for misconduct. My stomach flipped. I sat down hard on the couch, the menu forgotten, and watched. The reporter's voice was crisp, cutting through the hum of my fridge. 3 women from Celeste's company had come forward, accusing Jasper of inappropriate behavior, unwanted advances, late-night texts, pressure masked as mentorship. The screen flashed his photo, that slick smile I'd seen up close at the party, and I felt a rush of something: anger, vindication, maybe relief. Owen had warned me about his reputation, and Celeste had admitted she'd leaned into his attention, but this was bigger. This was proof, out in the open, that he wasn't just some charming boss. I muted the TV, the silence heavy, and grabbed my phone. I didn't call her, not yet, just scrolled X, where people were already posting. Knew he was a creep, one said. About time, another. I set the phone down, my hands restless, and waited for what she'd do. The next morning, my phone buzzed early. "Celeste, did you see the news?" Her text read. "Can we talk?" I stared at it, the coffee I'd brewed going cold. "Yeah," I typed back. "Come over." She showed up an hour later, knocking soft, like she wasn't sure I'd let her in. I opened the door, and she stepped inside, her face pale, her eyes tired. She didn't sit, just stood by the counter, arms wrapped around herself. "It's true," she said, no preamble. "What they're saying about Jasper." I didn't know. Well, I didn't know it was that bad. But I'm not surprised. I leaned against the wall, watching her. "You worked with him every day," I said. "You didn't see it?" She shook her head, fast. I saw pieces. The flirting, the way he'd linger. I thought it was just him being him. I didn't think. She trailed off, and I crossed my arms. "You didn't think he'd cross lines?" I said, sharper than I meant. "Or you didn't care, long as it wasn't you?" Her eyes snapped to mine, hurt flashing there. "No," she said. "I cared. I told myself it was normal, part of the job. He never tried anything with me, Grant, I swear. But I knew he was off. I should have said something." I nodded slow, letting that sink in. "You danced with him," I said. "You let him close. You liked it." She didn't deny it, just looked down, her fingers digging into her sleeves. "Yeah," she whispered. "I did. And I'm ashamed of it now." We stood there, the air thick between us. I wanted to believe her, that she hadn't known the full scope, that she hadn't been part of it. But I remembered Owen's words, Jasper's pattern, and her own admission about chasing his power. "What are you going to do?" I asked finally. She took a breath, straightening up. "I gave a statement," she said. "To HR, the investigators. I told them what I saw. Small things, comments, times he pushed boundaries with me and others. I'm not proud I stayed quiet so long. But I'm done with that." I raised an eyebrow. "You're turning on him?" She met my gaze, steady. "I'm telling the truth. He's not who I thought he was. Or maybe he is, and I was too blind to care. I didn't know what to say to that. Part of me wanted to cheer Jasper exposed, her stepping up, but another part stung, knowing she'd been tangled in his world so deep. And the job? I asked. She sighed, leaning against the counter. I quit. Yesterday, before this broke. I couldn't stay. Not after everything, not just him, but me, what I let happen. I need a fresh start. I blinked, surprised. She loved that job, thrived on it. You sure? I said. She nodded, a small, sad smile tugging her lips. Yeah, it's not about impressing you, Grant. It's about me. I lost myself there. I'm trying to find her again. I watched her, the way she stood there, not begging, just being. She wasn't the Celeste from the party, sharp, dismissive, or even the one from therapy, desperate to fix us. This was someone else, someone stripped down, starting over. You think this changes things? I asked, my voice low. With us? She shrugged, uncertain. I hope it shows you I'm serious. I don't expect you to run back. But I want you to see I'm not that person anymore, the one who hurt you. I didn't answer, just let her words settle. The TV flickered in the corner, still muted, Jasper's face gone now, replaced by some ad. She stayed a while, talking about the statement, how she'd sat with HR, detailed every late meeting, every too friendly remark. She wasn't one of the 3 women accusing him, but her words backed them up, added weight. I should have done it sooner, she said, her voice breaking. For them, for me. I nodded, feeling the anger I'd held toward her shift, not gone, but different. She wasn't defending him now, wasn't glowing about his genius. She was tearing it down, piece by piece. You did it now, I said. That's something. She looked at me, I soft. Yeah, it is. When she left, I sat on the couch, the apartment quiet again. I thought about power, how she'd chased it with him, how it had blinded her to me, to us. This wasn't love, what she'd done, but it wasn't betrayal either, not the way I'd feared. She hadn't slept with him, hadn't crossed that line. I believed her on that. But she'd let him matter more than me, and that was its own kind of cut. Now she was walking away, not just from him, but from that life, and I saw it, her trying, not for me, but for herself. It made her real again, someone I could maybe trust, not today, but someday. I grabbed my notebook, the one I'd been scribbling in, and wrote, she's finding her way back. Am I? I didn't know the answer, but watching Jasper fall, seeing her stand up, it shifted something. Power wasn't love, and she was learning that. Maybe I was too. I set the pen down, the words staring back, and felt a flicker of hope, not big, not loud, but there. I woke up early, the light sneaking through the blinds of my rented apartment, casting thin lines across the floor. My name's Grant Whitaker, 39 years old, and I've been living here for weeks, piecing myself together after Celeste's dance with Jasper Klein at that company party shattered what I thought we had. Yesterday's news, Jasper under investigation, her quitting her job, giving a statement, still echoed in my head. She'd come over, laid it all out, and left me with a quiet hope I wasn't sure what to do with. Today, I decided to go back to the house, not to move in, not yet, but to talk, to see if something worth saving was still there. I showered, pulled on a clean shirt, and drove over, the familiar streets feeling strange under the weight of everything. I pulled into our driveway, the red brick house looking unchanged, lawn trimmed, curtains drawn, like nothing had happened. My key still worked, the lock clicking open, and I stepped inside. The air smelled like her coffee, that floral soap she loved, and it hit me hard, a mix of comfort and ache. Celeste? I called, my voice rough in the quiet. She came out of the kitchen, a mug in her hand, her eyes widening when she saw me. Grant, she said, setting the mug down fast, like she might drop it. You're here. I nodded, staying by the door, hands in my pockets. Yeah, thought we should talk. For real. She gestured to the living room, and we sat, her on the couch, me in the armchair across from her. The space between us felt wider than it was, filled with all the unsaid things from the past weeks. She didn't jump in, didn't plead, just watched me, waiting. I took a breath, letting the words find their way. I saw the news, I started. About Jasper, what you did, quitting, the statement. It's big. She nodded, her fingers tracing the edge of the couch. It was time, she said. I couldn't stay there, not after everything. I needed to cut it clean. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. I see that. And I see you trying therapy, coming to me, owning it. But I'm still figuring out what it means for us. Her face softened, but she didn't cry, didn't push. I know, she said. I don't expect you to just come back. I messed us up. I'll wait as long as you need. That surprised me, her not begging, not rushing me. It was new, this patience, and it made me keep going. That night, I said, when you told me to sit or leave, it wasn't just about Jasper. It was you telling me I didn't matter. I've been living with that, trying to figure out if I can be here again, with you, without feeling like that. She looked down, her hands stilling. I hate that I made you feel that, she said. It's the worst thing I've done. I didn't see it then, but I do now. I nodded, the memory still sharp, her with him, her voice cutting through the music, my feet carrying me out. I didn't just leave that night, I said. I left us, in my head, because I didn't know how to stay. But I've been thinking there was a third option. Not sitting, not leaving, but speaking. Telling you I needed to be chosen, respected. I didn't do that. I walked instead. She met my eyes, steady. You're doing it now, she said. And I'm listening. I want to choose you, Grant, if you'll let me. I sat back, letting that land. It wasn't a fix, but it was a start, her hearing me, not fighting back. We talked more about the past, the slow drift before Jasper, the way we let silence grow. She admitted she'd stopped talking to me, scared of rocking the boat, and I on my part, shutting down, not pushing when I should have. We stopped being a team, I said. Duke dying, your job, my work, we let it pull us apart. She nodded, a small smile tugging her lips. He was our glue, wasn't he? I smiled back, faint. Yeah. After him, we didn't know how to stick. It wasn't all tears, some of it was light, remembering dumb fights over dishes, her stealing my socks. But it led us here, to this room, this moment. I'm not moving back, I said finally, firm but calm. Not today. But I'm not done either. Counseling, boundaries, honesty, I'll try that. See where it goes. Her eyes lit up, soft, not pushy. Okay, she said. I'll do it too. Whatever it takes. I stood, and she did too, stepping closer but not too close. It's not a fairy tale, I said. It's messy, and I don't know if we'll make it. But it's honest. She nodded, tears brimming but not falling. Honest is enough for now. And if we dance, it's our music, no one else's. I chuckled. Low? Deal. We didn't hug, didn't rush it, just stood there, letting it settle. I grabbed my keys, heading for the door, and she followed, quiet. See you at therapy? She asked. Yeah, I said, stepping outside. See you. The air was cool, the sky clear, and I drove back to my place, her words in my head, our music. It wasn't perfect, wasn't a movie ending, but it was ours. I parked, sat in my truck, and thought about that third option, speaking, choosing, rebuilding. We'd try it, step by step, and maybe find us again. For now, that was enough.